When most people think about fishing, they think about catching the big one. I've been lucky enough to catch a few big ones myself. It is a thrilling experience, but as exciting as that is, for me, the real joy, the lasting joy, doesn't come from catching the fish. It comes from sharing the experience with a good fishing buddy.
For me, fishing is about who you want to spend the day with. It's not about numbers. I just want to have a wonderful exchange with another person for the day without TVs, electronics, real communication. And I like to catch fish, but it's really more about who you're going to spend the day with.
When two people share a passion for a river, they become friends, no matter how different they might seem to be. That was the case with me and one of my favorite fishing buddies, Stanley Bogdan, the legendary inventor of the Bogdan reel. It didn't matter that Stan was more than half a century older than me, or that he came from a completely different background. We became friends the first time we went out on the river together, and despite some rocky moments, we remained friends until he died at the age of 92. Stanley Bogdan is a household name in the world of Atlantic salmon fishing. Every serious fisherman wants one of his handmade reels, and the list of owners reads like a who's who of the rich and famous.
A reel from my wife, inscribed with her name, the Duchess of Wellington, and if so...
I got my first Bogdan reel several years ago at an auction.
Well, give me $2,000.
It was a big thrill.
$2,000 bid to start with. I've got $2,000.
Well, I felt like I had just come home with a new pony. I was very excited. By sporting one of these reels, you're part of a very unique club, and I wanted to be part of that history.
A couple of years after that, I met Stan at an Atlantic Salmon Federation dinner. I normally wouldn't interrupt anyone having their dinner, but my husband Lou said I should go and say hello.
We were in the ballroom, and the door opened, and this beautiful girl walked in and crossed the room and sat down about 100 feet away.
So I went over and I introduced myself, and Stan stood up, and we were the same height. We were eye to eye.
And I couldn't get my eyes off her. I mean, she's just strikingly beautiful.
And I was starstruck.
I was all over the place.
He was delighted that I came over to say hello, and we were friends in that instant.
A few months later, Stan called me out of the blue.
He said, I'm going Atlantic salmon fishing with my son and daughter-in-law, and I want to know if you'd like to come. So I was blown away that he would think enough to invite me to go fishing with him.
That's what really intrigued me, was the fact that this is how she made her living. Going all over the world, living under the same rules that men do. And what I love about the whole thing is every time they meet her, they figure, well, this is a pushover because she's a woman. This girl will knock you down and step on you. She is tough. Now, of course, she's good looking too, so that's got a hell of a lot to do with it.
It turns out Lou wasn't able to go. And I told Stan that Lou wasn't able to go, and he laughingly said, well, I didn't want your damn husband there anyway.
I've been making fishing films for years, and I thought Stan would be a good subject for a film. When I asked him if he'd be interested, he jumped at the opportunity.
So we'd love to put a mic on you, if that's okay.
He loved the attention. He really got a kick out of it.
I was a little apprehensive about fishing with Stan. Fishing is historically a male preserve, and I didn't know how Stan felt about women anglers.
What the quote used to be, keep the women off the salmon rivers.
Yeah.
And here I am with you.
Yeah.
So don't tell anybody.
It turned out I didn't have anything to worry about. Stan acknowledged that I was a professional fly fisherman, and the fact that I was a woman didn't enter into the equation. That meant a lot to me.
I admire her because she went into a man's world and succeeded. And I mean, not just succeeded, she steamrolled him. And I think that's wonderful.
Stan was a fabulous fishing buddy. He was good company. He wasn't competitive, and he was very, very generous.
He wants you to catch a fish more than he wants to catch a fish for himself. That's a special quality. So he would always insist that I put my fly through the pool first. And of course, the first person through the pool has the best chance of catching a fish. He's very generous in that way.
There we go.
Atta girl.
That's it.
Perfect.
He would take time to enjoy his surroundings.
I had some people that I used to fish with. They wouldn't even know that the fall foliage is beautiful. You have to point it out to them. If they don't catch a fish a day, they're not happy. I like to look at the water. I just love to be there.
I really like that about him because I'm the same way. I just love being in nature. A lot of people don't care about that. All they care about is how many fish they catch.
First trip with Stan in New Brunswick, we didn't catch anything. I don't even think, well, we saw a fish. We sure didn't catch a fish. We didn't get a hit, a bump, a roll, a flash. We got a nothing. But it didn't matter.
I learned something today, Stanley. I learned that a Bogdan reel is as hard to get as an Atlantic salmon. See what I mean?
Well, I know that I've got an in with the maker, and I can assure you that catching a fish out here is a lot harder
than getting a Bogdan.
It didn't matter because the company was wonderful.
After that first trip, our friendship continued to grow.
That's you, all right. I think it looks better on you.
You're a Hannah Nager.
He was in love with her. He just loved her, and he kept telling us, you know, next to Phyllis is Kathryn. He just loved Kathryn like he did his wife.
We spoke on the phone every week. I visited him in New Hampshire whenever I could. We shared a passion for Atlantic salmon fishing. That was the cement that bound us together.
Third time, he had him. He had both hands around the fish, and he looked up at me and said, "Mr. Bogdan, have you ever caught a fish this big before?" And I said, I don't know. He's pretty big, isn't he? Jesus Christ, he's the biggest fish I ever saw.
Atlantic salmon fishing is an obsession. The more you do, the more you need to do. And when you're not doing it, you're reading about it or planning the next opportunity.
Rods, hat.
Or you're on the phone finding out from your fishing buddies who's fishing where, what rivers are hot right now, you know, who's caught what, where, with what. And so it's all consuming.
Stan was an eyewitness to the entire North American history of Atlantic salmon fishing. He'd lived through it all.
I loved hearing his stories, and he could tell that I loved hearing his stories.
It's his beautiful stories, the places he's been. It's the way he tells them.
There are all these books written about Atlantic salmon. It's the most written about species. So I'm reading all of these books, and I'm reading about the people who have brought the sport to where it is today. And then I meet Stan, and Stan's got the inside scoop on all these people because he was there as history was being written.
These are the people that owned Maldavu, which is where the king used to come when he fished the river.
I have a lot of respect for what Stanley was able to accomplish in his life. It's an amazing success story. Here's this man who came from a blue-collar background.
And yet he is living this special lifestyle because of his patrons and his fishing buddies who take him off to these castles in Scotland to Atlantic salmon fish. You know, he's on private jets. I mean, he's living the life. He's sitting, having dinner with the captains of industry. These are his peers. None of it would have been possible except for the invention of the Bogdan reel.
If I didn't make fishing reels, nobody would know me. Actually, I've been making reels for 70 years, 1940 to now. That's 70 years. And somebody had to tell me that because I didn't know. All I did is, if I didn't make reels, I would know absolutely no one.
He didn't start out with an end goal in mind. He just wanted to make a reel. He had no idea where it was going to lead, but it took over his life.
So this goes on here.
I had a job in another machine shop, and I was so poor that I took the job so that they would let me work on my reels after hours.
I looked up to Stan. I admired him for who he was and what he'd accomplished. I felt very fortunate to be his friend.
Oh my gosh, Stan, look over there. Look over there.
Over where?
Over there. Well, I'm leaving now. I have to go to the airport. It's been really fun visiting the Bogdan reel plant. I'll see you guys later.
Lock the door.
In 2009, Stan and I went fishing on the Kedgwick River in New Brunswick. I didn't know it then, but it was the last time we would ever fish together. That summer, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. He wasn't given long to live.
Good Lord. Come on, baby.
It was traumatic. Every time that I saw him thereafter, I thought it would be the last time that we would ever see each other again.
He knew and I knew, but we never actually talked about it, not directly.
Stan and I would talk about mortality and his philosophy on not planning for tomorrow, but just living for today. And he would talk about his doctor's appointments, but he never did come to me and say, you know, I'm dying. He just couldn't.
It was a very good year.
What are you singing, Stanley?
I'm singing a song that Sinatra used to sing. But now the days grow short. I'm in the autumn of my years, and I think of my life as vintage wine from fine old kegs, from the brim to the dregs. I don't know why I like melancholy songs, but I'm a moody guy anyway, so.
His illness changed the way he looked at his life. Stan was proud of what he had achieved, but he realized it had come at a price.
I think in life, it's all about making decisions, what road to take. And Stan chose the life of building this reel, which has become a part of history, over spending time with the children that he brought into the world. So he created both of these things, but he didn't have a balance. And I think I know he greatly regretted not spending more time with his children. Stan talked about how he missed Phyllis.
The only thing I regret is that she couldn't have lived longer than she did. I wish the devil she was here today, I'll tell you. Oh, I miss her.
After hearing that Stan had terminal cancer, I wanted to make whatever time he had left very fulfilled. And I know that he and his wife had spent time in Bermuda and they had great memories, so I wanted to help Stan relive some of those memories, and I invited him to Bermuda.
It nearly destroyed our friendship.
I think Stan was special as a fishing buddy, more so than some of my other fishing buddies, because he was so famous or infamous. And unfortunately, I think I put him on a pedestal and had a very unrealistic expectation of the man.
He had been disrespectful to other people, but he was always a perfect gentleman with me, so I guess I closed my eyes to it. But in Bermuda, I was the target.
So what happened, in fact, was without going into detail, he had disappointed me and embarrassed me by his behavior, and he had treated my friends awkward. He had behaved very badly in a way that might have been acceptable many years ago, but is no longer acceptable today.
Stan can also be persistent in what he's doing and not realizing that he's hurting somebody's feelings, because I've also seen that, and I've been on that end of that, and that's when you have to say is, hey, wait a minute.
I had been lying to myself so perfectly. I made him out to be an old-fashioned gentleman, and he was not. This relationship that had been so special to me and very treasured had exploded and become a very negative relationship.
I was so upset that when I got back home, I didn't want anything more to do with him.
I was never going to call him again. In fact, I ripped up all the pictures from the trip, and it was a real breakup. This wasn't just losing a friend, this was losing my fishing buddy. At a time when I wanted to be supporting him, it was devastating. So time passed. I didn't call him, he didn't call me. You know, Stan is very stubborn. I'm very stubborn.
I really would like to see them talking again, because Stanley really loves Kathryn. We all do.
Then he surprised me. A couple of months later, he sent me a letter.
And it was a letter apology from Stan, or as close to an apology as you can ever get from Stan. I forgave Stan in the moment that I held his familiar letterhead in my hand. I realized I didn't want things to end that way. I really needed to feel good about the relationship and all that we had shared. And if things were left the way that they were, then I would never have that. I got on a plane that week and flew to Nashua.
Well, we're on our way to Stan's house, my fishing buddy, and I've made this ride so many times. I don't think I'll be making this trip again. I think this will be the last time, and try to come away with some peace for both of us and some wonderful memories that'll sustain me, because I'm going to have to say goodbye. You look great, sweetie. I love you, sweet.
I love you. How's Lou?
He's doing great. He's asking all about you.
Well,
Look, I've got your letter here and some hankies. Give me a hug.
what's the hankies for?
Well,
God, it's good to see you.
well, why don't we put on the kettle and have a cup of tea, and we've got a lot of catching up to do.
Well,
I want to hear about the fish you caught in Norway.
I just happen to have a picture.
Oh, well, let's go look. You don't
Well-
mind putting the kettle on, do you?
No, you can put it on. I don't know what the devil
Oh,
I'm doing.
typical man. I
Am
got to
I-
serve you. Oh, my Lord.
Jesus. Oh. when I left the island, I was going around in circles.
I know.
I didn't know what I was doing.
I know.
I got home, I didn't know what I was doing. And for 2 months, I didn't know what I was doing. Every time the phone rang, I didn't know if it was you, or whether it was I wanted to hear your voice or whether I didn't want to hear your voice. But it's how that letter that I wrote. Nobody asked me to write that letter. I just wrote it.
I'm so glad you did, Stan.
Well,
I'm so glad you did.
I'm so glad I did too. But
I had all kinds of things running through my mind, and I said, Jesus, maybe I talked myself out of the golden egg here. I didn't even know if they were going to see her again, for crying out loud. And that would have been, oh my God. I don't know what I would have done with myself.
And so I no longer saw Stan as the sports hero. I saw him for the very delicate, flawed, grayed-haired man who had been through so much in his life.
What's your favorite fly? Blue charm? Rusty rat?
No, blue chime is one of them.
Yeah.
But
Lefty's deceiver?
no, see, I don't do that much saltwater fishing.
No.
So,
The Casaboom.
Kosovo
The
is
thunder and lightning.
That thunder and lightning is.
I actually felt really sorry for him. And I was able to move past my emotion and be there for him in his final times. Because I'm going to go very soon, and I've got to get on an airplane and go back.
I know you have.
So I just want to say I'll see you on the river, okay?
Well, we won't say goodbye then.
No, we won't say goodbye.
Okay.
You and I don't do goodbyes. We do I see you on the river.
That's a good way of saying it.
Okay.
Because I would look forward to that much more so than anything else in the world. Because I've only loved two people, Phyllis and you. That's all I need. Nothing else.
Well, thank you for your love, Stan.
Well, bye, guys. It's great.
Stan died a few months later. We talked on the phone many times, but I never saw him again. I'm glad we had a chance to make up. If we hadn't, it would have been something I would have regretted for the rest of my life.
It's so difficult to talk about because he was such a gift in my life. People walk past me every day and don't see me for who I am. And he stopped and he said, "Oh, I see you." And not only do I see you, but I celebrate you and your journey, and I understand your heart. You know, going Atlantic salmon fishing this season, it won't be the same. Just gonna miss him.
Bum bum ba-da-dum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. And then he'd start in on the second.